All frucked up, day 56. So 29th of June, 2025. And I've been thinking about hedonistic avoidance. So I think I got that from the book Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. But it's the idea of, just seeking comfort. And, that could even start as a justifiable reward for a job well done. But I do think as humans, we fall into like behavioral patterns for sure. Like ask yourself the question, if you drive to work, where do you park your car? It probably, in a parking lot that has spaces available, it probably tends to be in the same parking space every day. We fall into these default routines. So, and I could go on, but you get the point. From the moment we wake up and how we prepare for a work day to where we park the car and what our routine is once we get into the office or whatever the work site might be, there's probably a lot of day-to-day parallels. So, but yeah, hedonistic avoidance, I think, is just an excess of comfort, an excess of screens, phone, computer, television, and the dopamine hit. A lot of people are talking about it. This is not new information. People have talked about it for several years. But like the approach that I'm taking to it is, I think a lot of people from like age 30 to maybe 50, they have this midlife crisis, as we call it. And the answer is not a new car. It's a new set of habits, and because like things, material things, the external environment, those might provide a like short-term emotional high, but they're not going to substantially change the structure or your level of satisfaction with your life. So like all of that might be very cliche, but all of that comes from within. And much like in the book The Power of Decision by Raymond Charles Barker, the people that try, wish, hope, and they use language that tends to express that, like they will literally say, I'll try to do this, or I'm trying to do that. No, you choose, you decide to have an outcome. And then you set your mind on it, you set your heart on it, and it's just the thing that you just keep chipping away at. Even if it's in the background, it's the thing that when you're not actively engaged with your work or your family, your kids, etc., that you can be thinking about. It's not obsessive, but it's always there. It's pervasive. It's like the thought behind the thought. So you're going through your day thinking about work. You're home with your family thinking about responsibilities. But behind all that, or maybe beneath all that, in the subconscious, is this decision that you've made to keep chipping away at a goal. And you can't allow yourself to get caught up in the hedonistic avoidance, I don't know the source, or I would cite the source, but I saw a quote one time, and it said, on the path to self-improvement, tomorrow means never. So if we're not like actively chipping away at our health and wellness goals, instead of like chipping away at our level of health and wellness with our choices, if we're not actively involved on some level day to day, like having that thought, okay, what would a healthy person do? What am I doing to support, my outcomes for the rest of my days on this planet? Like whatever length of lifespan I have ahead of me, whatever that lifespan is, and I think we should more specifically talk about health span, but whatever that time is, right? Whatever's left, we should be actively working to optimize that. I don't think a midlife crisis needs to be happening, at age 35 or 40, and we consider that midlife. I think there's just, at some point, the realization that at a young age, right, when we were kids, we had some vision, maybe not of our environment and, who was a part of our family and what we owned, but at least of some internal feeling of like, this is the emotional state that I would like to derive from my adult life. And so many times we get caught up, and we focus on a lot of things that, yes, they are important, but we put ourselves on the back burner in the process, and our own goals related to our health and wellness, and that's mental and physical health, those things take a back seat to, raising kids, taking care of day-to-day tasks. But what should be primary, and the analogy is, yes, very overused, but the oxygen mask on an aircraft. You put on your own oxygen mask before you help the person next to you. Because, and I think I first saw this in like a tarot reading, and having a dialogue with the person that was, doing the tarot cards. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't pour from an empty cup. So, like, take a moment, sit back and really evaluate, like, what's the gap between the vision that you had for your life and where you're currently at. And if you don't like the results of that analysis, just choose to change your outcome. Make a decision to take action. But don't forget to love yourself through the whole process. We're all our worst critic, or at least we can be. So, like, again, treat yourself as someone that you care about. That's where it begins. Treating yourself like someone you care about. It's like reparenting yourself. Treat yourself in a loving way, the way you would treat your children, and the way you would guide them. Like, guide, coach, mentor yourself to the to the degree that is possible, because the self that needs improving, the self that needs coaching, is also the self that's doing the improving. So it's kind of an interesting task. But to the extent that you have awareness, you notice there's a gap in where you thought you'd be and where you're at. What loving thing could you do to support your best outcomes? What do you want your future to be? Because you have the ability, even if you don't currently, on day one, believe in yourself, it's a positive feedback loop that you're entering into. So be patient with yourself to the extent that you can. Love and accept yourself in the process. And it's not like, oh, I'm happy at this weight. I'm happy with this level of like adipose tissue, the body fat. But you can accept it. You can deconstruct how you arrived there. You can look at the emotional state or the reasons that drove the behavior, even if it was like just a lack of awareness, just the standard American diet, like a person having a goal of like graduating college and, buying a house and getting married and raising kids, and they just, eat what everyone else is eating, and they're not giving it a thought. Well, at the point that it becomes a problem and your doctor's like, well, you've got hypertension and sleep apnea and on the list can go, that's your call to action. So for the folks that are interested in a very short movie recommendation, I would say, check out Finding Joe. It's a I don't know if I'd really call it a documentary, but it's people that were inspired by the works of Joseph Campbell. And I think people will find a lot of value in that. And I think it's like 90 minutes of runtime. So it's not a big time sink. In any case, I hope you had a great day. I hope you're enjoying your evening. See ya.